Well, let's get right down to it. The government today has announced massive reforms for geospatial and mapping, how mapping is done in India. They've been called a game changer, which will also put the Indian players at par with foreign players. For example, will this end the kind of monopoly that the Indian players said was being used by Google Maps? That's something only time is going to tell, but there's going to be no negative list. Indian players will have the same kind of access as foreign players. First, listen in from the press conference held by two senior ministers, Jitendra Singh as well as Dr. Harshvardhan.
This was a decision which was quite unimaginable till very recent past, and I think as a follow-up of that, now we have moved one step further and made a history today by announcing that map making in India stands completely deregulated from today. That is the 15th of February 2020. And this is in keeping with the agenda which has been followed by this government under Prime Minister Modi, the agenda of self-reliance, the agenda of Atmanirbhar Bharat. And therefore, keeping that as the focus, space technology and mapping would no longer be confined only as a tool to take care of the security areas, but also as a major tool for the development.
So let's discuss this and more with someone who's been in the business for more than 2 decades. Map My India, the founder and the chairman and managing director of Map My India, Rakesh Verma, joining us live right here on Startup Central. Thank you so much. How big a move is this by the government? There will be no negative list. Private companies, including Indian private companies, will not have any barriers when it comes to mapping. The Prime Minister has taken to Twitter saying this is going to usher in a new era when it comes to mapping. What is this going to mean, Mr. Verma? You tell us.
It's very simple. After, I guess, decades or 70 years of regulating for unnecessary reasons, it's a path-breaking announcement by the government. And I'll use a very simple example to make my point. You know, when we had to map a pothole, we had to take government's permission whether we can put that pothole there on the street or not in the map. Now, such kind of unnecessary issues are now resolved because now it's a self-certification. And as a part of self-certification, I believe the Indian companies must be responsible and accountable.
But tell us, what were the barriers? First of all, were you at how were you at a disadvantage with the foreign players? How were the Indian companies at a disadvantage? Because that is what everybody's talking about today, that at least there is now a level playing field.
Well, as you know, MapMindia has been in the business for 25 years. When we had to publish any data, we had to go to the government, approve this. Google didn't have to do all this because they are a foreign company. Now that immediately used to put us at a disadvantage. People will say our data is old, outdated. Now that's a simple answer to the level playing field. That's what we have been requesting the government for now years, to bring the level playing field between the foreign players and the Indian players.
So with the fact that the government is now saying that there will be no negative list and all of that, tell us in simple language, what does it actually mean? How is this going to bring in a new era for mapping? And also at a time when, when all of us are talking about 3D mapping and 4D mapping.
Think of the street view as an example. Those are 3D mapping or a 4D mapping with time horizon. MapMindia has kept the street view maps ready with it. But again, MapMindia was not allowed to do that. So these are the other examples of what the technology, and when we talk about 3D, 4D, we talk about digital map twin, which is the view of not only the outdoor 3D, 4D, but also of the indoor. So if the place allows you to do the indoor mapping, why not show it on the map? So basically, in simple words, I will say that this new guidelines has made it possible for the Indian companies to go ahead and map within the certain constraints that government has put in the guideline, like a 1 meter horizontal and 3 meter vertical.
Can I ask you that going forward, this kind of mapping, what it can do for sectors like, let's say, transportation, logistics, even agriculture, real estate?
Every sector is going to benefit. As I was also listening at the time of the announcement that 1 lakh crore worth of business potential is there by the year 2029. Now, if you think of transportation, the mapping on a real-time mapping means with using the tools and technologies where the turn restrictions, potholes, or any of those kinds of information flow in on a real-time basis, either through crowdsourcing or by the data that comes from the car. As MapMindia have tied up with most of the car manufacturers, we hope to get the data on a real-time basis, which will help in a better navigation. Similarly, if you think of areas like agriculture, health, you name it, with MapMindia's data, which is at every building level in the urban area, and every village has been mapped out with almost the entire country's road network there. So that's the other thing I heard in the presentation today, that if something is already made, why recreate it? So that's, from MapMindia's perspective, that's a path breaking also, because many of the projects we used to see where people are redoing the same work which is available in a private sector.
What will it take for the Indian players to gain ground, the reforms? Because you may not have the kind of capital that the global giants have. For example, a lot of us primarily use Google Maps. You can't match Google's capital, right?
I don't think it's so much a question of capital. MapMindia started as a startup company with 1 lakh capital 25 years back. And look at it. In no way MapMindia maps are inferior or less than Google Maps. It's just a question of the Google's might, which they probably have garnered the market because the Google Map app comes preloaded on the mobile phone. But every automotive company likes us because of the quality of our data. I don't think it's a question of capital at all. This industry, India is well positioned. Indians are so good at geospatial sector that once you become a big, well-known player in the country, you can go abroad, and we have the potential also of becoming something like Google and going outside India and do the same thing. I think under this Atmanirbhar thinking and the direction that our respected Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given to the country, we are extremely excited.
Dream big, act bigger. So that's clearly what Map My India is also about. So Verma, if I can ask you, I believe you have this technology, 4D digital map twin, which can give a unique code to even a mud hut in a small remote village. Are you planning to expand on that now with the kind of announcements that have come in today? And can you explain to our viewers that once you start giving these unique codes to, across the length, breadth of this country, what it can actually mean when it comes to delivery as well as development?
Hit something which is very close to my heart. we call it e-law code. It's not just a code. You know, what it does is Indian addressing is so complex, not only complex, it's so unorganized. Even in the big cities like Delhi, think of it, how many localities have proper address? And the address could be so complicated that even to reach there, maybe the only local postman might be knowing. But so many returns happen to the e-commerce companies, as I'm aware of, that 20% of their packages, they go back because they couldn't find the location. So the e-law system, what it does is for any location across the country which we have created, meaning thereby every place where people live or some activities are happening, we have given a unique code, 6-digit code, alphanumeric, and once you put in that code, you know exactly where that location is. And also at the same time, if it has a defined or an organized address, it also tells you that address too, making it so simple to use in a phone. Because today also people talk about more of voice-based recognition rather than typing. It's much easier for me to say MMI 000 is the address for MapMyIndia office in Delhi.
So, Rama, before I let you go, you talked about it briefly, but I want to get some more details on it. You said you're working with ISRO on a project. What is that about? Can you tell us more details? And now that there's no negative list, now that you don't have to worry about that problem, literally you can do a lot with ISRO. What is that?
Well, with ISRO, we have signed an MOU, basically partnering together. ISRO is well known for its space technology, the satellite area, the satellite images they possess, but those are pictures. What we have is the ground level data where we have made intelligent road, intelligent addresses, intelligent points of interest. What we are planning to do is combine the power of both. The moment you combine the power of both and then do the analytics on top of that, you will find that the usage goes as far as agriculture, health, anywhere. So the partnership will result into, this was one of our issues, that when people used to think of Google, they can see the Google Earth, the imageries. When they look at MapMyIndia, they couldn't find the imageries. Now with this partnership, they will be both available to MapMyIndia as well as to ISRO.
Okay, and by when, you've signed the MOU, when does all of this go live?
Well, this week there is a plan, there's a schedule to discuss the implementation plan. We are ready. Maybe I will say a few months, it should get released.
Can I ask you what it's going to be called? Like we know about Google Earth, but can you tell us what you're going to be doing with ISRO and the images, etc., all of that, what it's going to be called?
Well, their name is Bhuvan. Our name is MapMyIndia. The easiest way to do it is MapMyIndia Bhuvan.
Okay, Mr. Verma, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I look forward to getting you back on the show soon. Look at the trillions of dollars that are going to be unlocked thanks to this big reform. You're going to have players like MapMyIndia, I'm sure, who are going to stay up all night figuring out what all they really need to do. This has been a big grouse that how the foreign players had more of an advantage, but the government has now leveled the field. Thank you so much for giving us the time today on Startup Central.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to take a short commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Coming up on the other side, it's an ET Now exclusive. You've seen the Atmanirbhar push that has come in for mapping. On the other side, we're going to talk about yet another Atmanirbhar push. This time, it's going to be for social media and microblogging in particular. Stay tuned.